Hey nerds, it's Nathan, and we're back with another book review, and we are doing To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Hopefully I got that right. Paolini. If you recognize the name Christopher Paolini, that's because he wrote the Eragon series. This is his attempt into adult sci-fi, and I gotta say, he kind of fucking nailed it. Set in our world in the far, far future, we follow our protagonist Kira after she discovers a type of long-lost alien artifact, and we follow her through her journey as essentially a interstellar war breaks out after the discovery of said artifact. This is a chunky book. I'm just gonna give you this for reference. Okay, this is the width of my hand. All right. Okay, this is a chunky book. And yes, I'm using a Coke can to balance it up because it doesn't fit in my normal book holder because it is 900 pages or about there. Something I would like to show you actually, which I thought was really good, something that I feel more books need, is an appendix. So essentially all the terminology used within the book, like my Coke to hold it up because it's too big to fit in my normal book display. Basically all the terminology used in the book is at the back in the appendix, and there's 3 or 4 little places throughout the book as well where you are actually given a type of 3D topographical map of the star system that they are either in or have moved into or out of, to help give you like a frame of reference to the scope of their movements through the storyline. The story follows our main protagonist, Kira, who discovers an alien artifact on a planet that is being surveyed for colonization. And once there is the discovery of this artifact, essentially an interstellar war ensues. And it is us following Kira along her journey, trying to navigate through the situation of this war, and also her new connection to this alien artifact. This artifact essentially binds itself to her, and it is her learning about the artifact, how to use the artifact, how to navigate through a war while also being wanted. And yeah, I gotta say, this was a really interesting book. A lot of actual scientific terminology used. Obviously, it's still sci-fi. It is set in our world, far into the future. And as the reader, Paolini gives us like, we started on Earth and we colonized here and then we colonized there. And then there's all these space stations throughout and how they get hydrogen. They don't explain how they get antimatter, but we already have the ability to make antimatter. But like how they get their hydrogen, their antimatter, this, that, the fact that they can use lasers in space, but sometimes a good old nuclear missile is actually more effective. And it was just really interesting. It's really impressive to see someone who creates and writes fantasy shift into sci-fi with such an eye for detail. I think that's what really impressed me. Not actually having read his other works, but knowing that his fantasy is epic, very large scale, very in-depth. That was one of the reasons I couldn't read it as a kid with my dyslexia. So, very impressed. One thing I will say about Paolini's work is that it has the depth of a fantasy read. Now, what I mean by that is this is a chonkers book, right? This is a chonkers book. This is a big fucking book. And I don't think any of it was wasted. I feel like every page... Bug, excuse me. If I can try to fly my eyeball. Every page was written with a purpose. There isn't an excess amount of fluff, or not that I noticed. There wasn't an excess amount of fluff or grandiose detail. I know sometimes some authors, especially when trying to convey the scale of something, or to really push their point across about maybe the details within a structure, within culture, within clothing, anything, they hammer down on meticulous detail. This wasn't the case. All the detail given to you was necessary. All the dialogue, while most dialogue not always necessary, it felt true to the story, and it felt like it actually had something to add to each situation in which our protagonist Kira was involved with. Yeah, there were times when reading this, not gonna lie, I was thinking, oh my fucking god, when are we getting to like the next bit? There's just so much to get through. There's just so much to churn through. But at the same time, I didn't feel rushed, and I didn't feel disappointed. There was just a lot of information to take in, but it was all necessary. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, I feel like I do understand where the title came from. I feel like it just sounds very poetic, very beautiful. But I feel like also after reading the book, it's a tiny bit on the nose. Dunk. Spoiler alert to anyone. I'm going to give that now. You don't want to fucking hear it. Skip this bit. Maybe I'll put a clock time in of when I do. Once this artifact binds to her, she can't go into cryo. Now, she can go into a type of stasis, but it's definitely not like cryo. And she spends huge sections of time in this hibernative-like state where she's in and out of consciousness. And some of those like lengths of time are months. Like she falls asleep for a week at a time. And the only reason she gets up after a week is because she's literally like basically set an alarm for herself. Yeah, so I feel like while a beautiful, beautiful name for a book, also a tiny bit on the nose after reading it, and a little bit like, oh, okay. The way he's written it is, this is what we can achieve with human technology. Now, in this, obviously, there is aliens and there is alien technology. And we can see the different... I don't know if you can see that little bug fucking around. There he is. Fuck off. It's because the sun is setting. Yeah, we can see the difference between our technology and the alien technology. But most of it is through design rather than function. So the humans have faster than light travel, the aliens have faster than light travel. We have a type of stasis or cryo, they have cryo or a type of stasis. We have fusion drives that use antimatter and helium, or hydrogen, sorry. So do they. Like, our technology functions at a similar rate because of the way we have as carbon-based life forms, and as the aliens as carbon-based life forms have moved forward, some of their technology is far more advanced, but that is in function rather than necessarily design, which I really like that. That gives us a much more flat, even playing field when we look at the sci-fi fantasy, well, fanciful, I should say, fanciful aspects of it. One thing I really did love is the idea of a ship mind. A ship mind is basically a person who undergoes a procedure to have their brain essentially placed inside a ship, inside a spaceship. But they go through this process where they actually continue to grow, obviously through mutation as well, to the point where their whole brain can take up the whole space of a person. And the larger a brain you have, the bigger the ship you really need to put it in, because otherwise it's almost cruel to stick something that smart, that powerful, in a very limited function space. Kind of like when you have really gifted children stuck in just a class, and then they end up playing up because they're not getting the kind of attention, or they're not getting the kind of workout that their brain really craves. So there was that. I found that really interesting. I always liked that kind of sort of like, I was gonna say biomancy, but that's magic. I'm a fantasy boy. I like that kind of bioscience. I like that kind of biomutational mechanics. I really do. I think that's absolutely fucking fascinating. And sneaking that in there along with something that the aliens do, where they can basically print themselves a new body and upload their consciousness into it, that's also fucking awesome. That's fucking cool. I'm trying not to get into as many details as possible because it is a sci-fi and it is more about the journey than anything. I don't want to give away parts of the story. I really don't want to say something that, that spoils it. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. There is a little bit of romance in this book. A little bit. And I'm okay with a little bit of romance. I'm not a romanticy person or a romance person. Ironic considering I'm actually a romantic at heart myself, but I don't need it in my fantasy. I don't need it as a book by itself. And in a sci-fi setting, genuinely speaking, it feels really out of place. In this, it feels comfortable because it was written into the story. It's not just there like, oh, there's somebody handsome and they're paying attention to me while I'm going through all these problematic things and my life is so hard. No. We see at the start of the book her relationship with one individual and how that relationship initially formed and the level that they had reached, and this is why they are at this stage in their life. The artifact is found. Tragedy ensues. Ensues? Tragedy begins. Fuck it. Tragedy begins, and then as we move through the story, and Kira then basically, through happenstance, ends up in a particular place, on a particular ship, and we see her develop a new set of relationships with a new crew, and then slowly let her guard down to allow possible feelings to manifest. And we see the other person reciprocating that. And then by the end of the book, mind you, Big fucking book. Little bits of romance across a huge timeline. That's what I like, because it's not important to the story, and also it makes it feel realistic. But when we get to the end of the book, and everything looks dire, and it looks like everything's gonna end, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, that's when a lot of characters in the book, not just our main character and the potential love interest, but a lot of characters, they are honest with themselves. Death is literally around the corner at this particular stage in the book. The likelihood of survival is fucking slim to none. Did you see that bug again? Got him. The likelihood of surviving is slim to fucking none. So beforehand, the people that have feelings for each other open up. They do. The chance is they're not going to get another opportunity. So they do. And so does our main character. And I really, really enjoyed it, if I'm being honest. I really enjoyed that aspect because it was real. You know what I mean? Is it love, or is it just a desperate attempt of connection before the possibility of imminent death? And it just makes it feel like it has this gravitas to it. You know what I mean? Gravitas. It makes it feel like it has weight. Like, could it be affection? Could it be love? Or could it just be impulse, desperation, last fleeting attempts for connection before more tragedy? And believe me, there is a lot of fucking tragedy in this book. Another bit of praise I would love to give Chris, some more props, a bit more smoke blown up his ass, just really getting it out there. His ability to write a space battle, I was very impressed. If I didn't know Chris was a fantasy writer, I would have always thought he was destined for sci-fi. Not that sometimes some space battles are given this scope, or they're given such description and, I want to say, like, flair to help you gauge the size and the space between the two spaceships or the space stations or whatever it is. Whereas Chris uses your average details. Like when we're seeing a space battle happen and our protagonist is on a ship that is away from that battle and they are watching it, lasers and railguns and projectile ammunitions and nukes, everything is being used, but it's the way it's being used, the way it's told about the maneuvers and everything. It's almost like he's describing a dance through measurement. And I don't know if that's helpful at all, or if that's selling it, but to me it was, to help gauge the size of ships, the capacity, everything else. It was talking about how, some ships were firing off railguns or lasers or whatever, and they were maneuvering themselves to take cover behind huge asteroids or a asteroid belt around a planet, or a moon even. Like, the fact that they were using a moon to create cover for themselves, to reposition, to come back out over the top or underneath or on the side or whatever. And something else I really loved was chalk and chaff. So essentially ships, like all the ships, throw out these big packet missiles that explode full of chalk and bits of aluminium and something else, some other metallic substance I can't quite remember. But essentially it makes a giant white glittering cloud in space. And it looks pretty, but also it has a purpose because it disrupts visual feed because you can't physically see through it or see through it very well, but your cameras can't get through it because it screws up their whatchamacallit, like their signals, their radio signals to other ships or things, or their targeting as well. Fucks up their targeting. And when they shoot lasers through it, because there's all these fine metallic particles, it absorbs a rather significant amount of heat when those lasers are pushing through hundreds of kilometers. Because that's the thing, they are fighting each other at distance of kilometers, tens of kilometers, dozens of kilometers, hundreds of kilometers. Excuse me, 1 second. The space battles. He did a really excellent job at giving scope and scale to the level of the battle, to the size of the battle and the level of destruction. And it was interesting seeing how space warfare behaves very similarly to naval warfare, because it's less about just trying to blow them outright out of space, just hit them with every laser you've got until they a lot of the time it was you had to try and time your firing. You had to time how you used your lasers, or you had to use your lasers as a defensive thing, like to take out projectiles and things like that. But you ran risk of letting your lasers overheat. Constant movement ran risks of letting your engines overheat. And if you tried to open up a particular section of your ship to vent that heat out of your engines, you were at risk of exposing it to projectiles. And the idea with the space warfare is to disable. You can take out their engines, they're not going anywhere after that point. They can still, shoot and do things, but they're stationary. And once you've got them in that stationary position, you can maneuver around them. And a lot of the times, that was how it was described. It was like they got pinned, and then the other ships were moving around each other because war was still continuing, and the alien ships or the human ships would come in and basically pick off the ship that's been damaged. They'd be like, okay, that ship can't move, or now that ship can't defend itself. Either we'll leave it and come back to it, or we'll like kind of fly around it, use it as cover, punch it full of holes, and then it's really disabled, and then we'll continue on. And yeah, I was very impressed. If you couldn't tell by the terrible lighting, the bugs that keep flying in the screen, or the frogs that are now chirping, I don't know if you can hear them, but they're chirping. It's getting late. It's getting dark. I want to go inside. And I don't have much more to say. I'm very impressed by this book. I'm very impressed that it was done by a fantasy writer. Thanks. I love you. It is a slog of a book. It is a big book. It will take time. It is not something you can skim through, but it is definitely worth it. It is definitely worth the effort of reading, and more importantly, paying attention. There were a few times where we had this epiphany moment, and I was like, oh yeah, oh fuck, I wasn't paying enough attention to see that myself. Whereas sometimes in a much smaller book, you could be like, I think I know where this is going. I think I can see what is happening. And then, it does, or it, plot twist. But there's a few times where I was like, oh yeah, duh. Simply because I was trying to retain so much information and sort of power through the book. That was a mosquito. I don't just hate myself much. This is a great book. I'm probably going to keep saying it. I'm probably going to have to stop. But if you like sci-fi, if you are not afraid of the potential of a big book, if you're not afraid of a bit of commitment, because this will take some work to get through, you will be rewarded. I thoroughly enjoyed the end. I thoroughly enjoyed the way it was, I don't want to say left, but I thoroughly enjoyed the way that it was set up. I don't know if there's going to be a sequel. I've heard rumours. I haven't confirmed those rumours. But if it was left as a standalone, I'd be extremely happy. If it is going to be a sequel, I will be just as equally happy. And if it's just as big, I do not care. I will be picking it up and I'll be reading it. There's been times where there's been books that are a quarter of this size and they have not felt worth the effort. This does. The writing is spectacular. The story and our journey with Kira and everything that she has to go through is amazing. Like, you just want to be there with her the whole way through. You just want to be that friend that just supports someone going through a tough time. And that's also another sort of that's also another prop I'm going to give Chris, really, is the fact that you become invested. You really do. And not a lot of authors can always do that. They get you either invested in the world, the story, or the character, but generally not all three. And for me, I felt invested. I wanted to know what happened on the other planets and space stations and way stations that were being attacked. I wanted to be there like a good friend to Kira when she was going through everything, and I wanted to understand what was happening in our world. I wanted to understand and learn more about the aliens as Kira does. As Kira is learning about the aliens, I also want to know. There's so many points in this book where she's like, I have to focus. I have to get back on track and ask the questions I need to ask and find the answers I need to find. But every time I ask a question, it just opens up a whole new world of possibilities and things that I like. She's a xenobiologist as well, so she wants to learn things about the aliens and their culture and their technology, and she keeps getting sucked into these rabbit holes of wanting to get carried away and ask all these questions or do all these things, and everyone's like, hey, focus. And I feel the same way. And I think most people would when encountering a new species or a new set of cultures, where you're like, oh, I need to know more. I have this insatiable appetite for knowledge and I want to know. And yeah, I feel the same way. I want to know, because we get answers, and those answers make you go, well, hold on, what does that mean? What does this terminology mean? What do you mean by this? Or what do you mean by that? What does this answer mean? Yeah, great book. I would recommend it to anyone who is a big sci-fi fan. I would recommend it to anyone who has read his other works, because I really love comments to know the difference. I'd really love to know what you think. If you've read both his Aragon series and To Sleep and a Sea of Stars, I'd love to know how you would compare the two. I would recommend this to anyone who's not afraid of a bit of a commitment. Anyway, it's nighttime. I think my dinner's ready. I hope my dinner's ready. I'm very hungry. I'm very excited. My wife is a good cook. Yeah. Anyway, guys, fantastic book. Huge fucking book. I hope you love it. I really, really, really liked it. And I'll see you for the next one.